What's going on, everybody? We are back. Episode number 216 of the Club and Sub podcast. Tonight we're going to be chatting UFC 314. A fun card headlined by Alexander Volkanovski trying to get his title back, taking on Diego Lopes. It's a vacant title on the line. It's a banger card on paper. And to break it down, we brought our boy Pepe in. Pepe, how you doing?
What's up, boys? Good to see you guys. Excited for this card. Excited to break it down. Hopefully I can...
You there, Pepe? Is anybody there?
Yeah.
Oh, you cut out for a second, Pepe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my internet, I'm having trouble paying the bills with how I'm running in MMA. So bear with me if my internet gives out a little bit. But yeah, it's Diego Lopez fight week, right? Or we'll get to that fight, but I can't believe the guy is in a title fight right now. If you told me that 2 years ago that he was going to be fighting for a title, I would tell you to shut the fuck up. And now I have his slogan tattooed on me, and he's potentially going to be champion of the world.
It is kind of crazy. And honestly, we're not going to do a full recap last night because it's three of us and we have a long card here. But like after I feel like Lopez has been kind of blessed. Like after watching the Sabatini fight last night, I'm like, I feel like that probably happens to Diego Lopez more often than not, if he doesn't clip him in the first couple minutes there. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot to talk about. I will admit to Dixon before we start this, and that Cortavius Romeus is in fact a bum. That was a terrible bet. He sucks. It is what it is. But it was a pretty good night for me. So we move on though. UFC 314. First fight of the night, banger here. We got Haley Cowan. She's taking on Nora Cornell. Current price, Cornell's a favorite. She's currently minus 164. The comeback on Cowan, plus 144. Pepe, what are your thoughts on this one?
Why don't you go first, because you have a stronger take, and then I can give you some counter arguments.
Yeah, I bet Cowan small this morning. I'm not particularly high on Cowan as a fighter. She is powerful, physical athlete of a woman, I think, but a mid striker. I think she's got a decent top game, but a mid wrestler. But I look at Nora Cornell, and I know she went to a split with Jacqueline Cavalcanti, but if we're being honest, it shouldn't have been a split. I watched her get grinded out, and win, very fortunately, against Jocelyn Edwards. But, I don't really rate Jocelyn Edwards or her wrestling all that much. And she's an older woman, and she's coming in here. She's relied most of her career on knocking out pretty poor fighters. And she's coming in here and fighting Cowan. And, we've seen Haley Cowan, she's not great, but, she will go to the grappling when she has an advantage. We've seen her do that time in and time out. And I think she should be able to get takedowns on Cornell at some point in this fight. And I think if she does, she's going to be able to consolidate control fairly easily against Cornell on bottom. Obviously, if I'm wrong about that, she'll probably lose the striking on the feet. I do think Cornell is better than Horth, but I just look at the fight and I feel like Cornell is a pretty mid fighter with a lot of power. Cowan also pretty mid, but I just think in the context of the line, she's got much more upside here. So yeah, I'm on Cowan small. Lags, what are your thoughts on it?
Not too many strong opinions from me, honestly. I think Cornell just should be like a slight moderate favorite. To your point, I think she is going to get the better of the striking, and without Cowan's wrestling, I don't think she stands much of a chance to making it super competitive. So I'm fine with Cornell being the favorite, but no bet for me.
I've been pretty anti Haley Cowan since she got signed to Contender Series, and it's because she came with a little bit of hype, right? Yeah. And now the hype is gone, so it's not like I'm actively looking to fade her, but. So for this particular matchup, I think, like you said, Haley could get takedowns, which she might be able to. I don't know if that's going to be her game plan, though, because Nora's takedown defense isn't the greatest. But I do think the biggest discrepancy in the fight will be if Nora takes Haley down, because she's pretty poor on bottom.
Yeah.
And Nora has actively grappled in a lot of her fights. Like she was able to get Cavalcanti down in round one. I think you might be being a little harsh with Jocelyn Edwards being like she's really big for the weight class and she's improving quite a bit. I think she's kind of a level above Haley Cowan. So I actually think Nora is going to go for the grappling in this fight. And I think she's going to be a step ahead in the grappling. And on the feet, I think it's like pretty even. I kind of like the aggression out of Nora. She's kind of nastier in the clinch with elbows. And both of them slow down. So I don't really give a big cardio advantage to either girl. But overall, I just like the aggression of Nora. I think she's going to get takedowns because she's grappled in all of her fights. Even on the regional scene, she grapples quite a bit. And in Haley Cowan's loss in LFA, she got cracked by a complete bum and then guillotined. And you know, she was getting soundly out grappled on Contender Series too. So yeah, I think Nora is going to take care of business, but I probably wouldn't lay the juice on her, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a fair enough point. Moving on, we have another odd fight here. We got Marco Tulio making his second fight in the UFC. He's fighting Tresean Gore. Current price, Tulio minus 310. The comeback on Gore plus 260. Any thoughts on this, Pepe?
Nothing crazy here. I do like Tulio as a prospect. He's really well-rounded. He's got good power on the feet, and Gore is somewhat of a fade to me. Guy is really small for the weight class, doesn't have great durability, doesn't have great cardio. I feel like he's been running pretty well in his UFC tenure. I mean, he hasn't even been running that well. Like the big fight, the fight that like really kind of exposes Fremd Gore is the Fremd fight. Yeah. Where he got that Hail Mary guillotine, but was getting pieced up on the feet by Josh Fremd, getting backed up, and it looked like he was slowing down. And then Fremd shot a sloppy takedown, and Gore was able to get that guillotine. And then he fought a complete can in his last fight. So overall, I just think Tulio is going to be able to pace him, going to be able to potentially hurt him on the feet. I think he can win by decision, knockout, or sub. So I think Tulio should be fine here. Of course, Gore could bonk. It is middleweight, but I like Tulio as a prospect.
Yeah, I agree. I am I don't know. I've never been high on Tresean Gore. I feel, aside from the flaws you just listed out, Pepe, he's also a guy who just doesn't throw strikes. He's a very, very low volume striker. He lets his opponents just get off without returning all the time. You mentioned the possibility of the power threat from Gore. I'm not even sure he's that big of a hitter. Like, he only has one career knockout in 5 wins, which, considering the level of competition, that's kind of surprising. I do think there's a bit of hype on Tulio, and maybe that makes this a bit too wide. But I don't know. I like Tulio's pace quite a bit. I think he's the more durable fighter here. I think he's got better cardio. I think he's the better grappler. I feel like Gore is, I don't want to say meme or bust, but it's very, very hard for me to picture Gore winning minutes on the feet unless he's landing big shots. I suppose maybe Gore could have some like sneaky wrestling upside here. But even if he goes that route, I just I kind of doubt he has the cardio to do it for 15 minutes. So yeah, I mean, I think Tulio's better everywhere, bit more finishing upside, much higher work rate. I think he should do fine.
Yeah, because even in that last fight that Gore went for the takedown against, I forgot that guy's name.
Tricoli?
Yeah, even Tricoli was able to work back up to his feet after he got taken down. So I'm not that worried about Tulio getting grappled.
Lags, what do you think?
Not much to add, to be honest. I think Tulio makes quick work of him. It just kind of sucks that the under is 1.5.
All right, moving on. We got Sumadargi. He's taking on Mitch Raposo. The current price, Sumadargi minus 185. Comeback on Raposo plus 160. I'm contemplating a bet on Mudarji here as the line comes in a bit. I understand why there might be some interest in Raposo, given, you know, Raposo does come from a grappling background, and we have seen Mudarji struggle in the grappling previous to this. But I will say, like, the guys who really exposed Sue bad on the mat were Tim Elliott and Louis Smolka. I mean, both of whom are just much better grapplers, in my opinion, than Mitch Raposo. Now, I mean, maybe Raposo can have that degree of success, but we did see Charles Johnson try to pursue the grappling pretty heavily against Sue last fight, and Sue did a pretty good job rebuffing it and counter grappling himself. I actually think Sue's height and size for the weight class make him kind of tough to grapple if you're not a really good grappler, because he kind of knows how to, just buck and use his length to make positions tricky. And I'm not really sold on Raposo being a very good grappler, and couple that with the fact that he didn't really seem all that interested in grappling against Lima last fight. He didn't push it particularly hard. And I think there's a huge edge on the feet for Sue here. I know he's off a bunch of losses in a row, but there was a time when people were saying, he's the next champion, he's the next big thing at flyweight, and now we're here and he's minus 180 to Mitch Raposo, which I don't know. I mean, to me, it feels off. I can obviously picture the world where Sue, maybe gets top timed here. I don't think it's going to be that easy for Raposo. I don't think he's going to have much of any success on the feet striking with Sue. I like Sue here. I might eventually bet him. Lags, what do you think?
Yeah, and to your point also, it's a pretty big step down for Sue as well from the guys that he's been fighting. He's got a huge 8-inch reach advantage here. And to your point, I don't think Mitch is just a great wrestler at all. So I think the chalk on Sue is probably fine this week, to be honest with you. I just don't think Mitch is a great wrestler, and I think that's where he likely needs to get his bread buttered here in this fight.
Do you have a counterpoint here, Pepe?
I think Sumadargi's margins are way too thin for me to be okay with laying the price on him. And I do think there's some scope for improvement. Like when I first started taping the fight, it kind of seemed like it would be a levels fight, a pretty big step down in competition for Madargi. But the fact that he's been hurt in multiple fights and the fact that he has pretty thin hips, he could potentially get taken down. I know he's not as good of a grappler as Elliott, but Elliott absolutely ran through him. So Raposo might not be able to run through him in the grappling, but he could potentially get him down and get top time. And, when you're laying minus 210 or whatever, you're going to feel sick if Raposo is hitting takedowns. So I know he looked better against Charles Johnson, but Charles Johnson also showed that if you just bum rush this guy, you can kind of overwhelm him. And then, his boxing is not that great. He's mostly leg kicks. He's got slick counter striking, but he doesn't really let his hands go that much. I do think he's going to have success with the leg kicks, and, it might be too much for Raposo, but I feel like he has to fight really clean in order to justify this price. He doesn't have a lot of margin for error, so I'm not comfortable with that.
Yeah, I totally get it. Moving on, though, we have a very interesting fight here. We have Cedricus Dumas taking on Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. Current price, Oleksiejczuk minus 270 to come back on Dumas plus 170. What do you think, your legs?
Now, I know I was talking about an under 1.5 I didn't love earlier, but I kind of do like this under 1.5 with Mikey O and Dumas. To me, this seems like a car crash right from the jump. I like Mikey O in general. I know there's not much to his game in general. He's a pretty one-dimensional boxer, but the guy's got fast hands, got big power, and Dumas is just one of the worst to do it, in my opinion. Doesn't have great striking defense, doesn't have good cardio. I think Mikey O KOs him pretty fast.
What do you think, Pepe?
Yeah, I'm very anti Cedricus Dumas. I think this dude's a fucking bum, dude. The fact that he has multiple UFC wins, the fact that he beat Pinage on Contender Series is a fucking travesty. This dude is complete dog shit. And I like Mikey O training at Fighting Nerds. I know that's going to be a big narrative going into this weekend. But, dude, we were talking about how Mikey O was training in a garage a couple fights ago. He left the gym that he was at a couple years ago, the good grappling gym in Europe, Ankos, to train with some friends in a garage. So he was talking about retirement, this and that. He dropped Kevin Holland in that fight before getting armbarred. He's lost to a high level of competition, and now he's getting a big step down in competition. When Mikey O gets to step down in competition, he usually handles business pretty easily. I think he bonks Cedricus and gets a knockout.
Yeah, it's funny because I was kind of pre-tape thinking about betting Cedricus. I was just like, man, it's a big price for Oleksiejczuk. He's kind of vulnerable, kind of a bad grappler. But, man, you go back and watch Dumas, and, you just mentioned how Oleksiejczuk's fought a very high level of competition, and he has, but Cedric Dumas has fought a horrible level of competition and not look good doing it. Dumas got flat out outstruck by Josh Fremd and outgrappled and then submitted. He arguably lost the fight to the older Azaitar, who's terrible and like 40 years old and hadn't fought in like 3 years. Like you can make a really convincing case he lost that fight. The Tululin fight was insanely close, and considering so much of the scope of Dumas lies in grappling, it's like the fact that he got 3 takedowns against Tululin and wasn't really able to do much with them makes me pretty skeptical he's going to do much with them against Olasejuk. And like his best win is legitimately Cody Brundage. And Cody Brundage just kept jumping guillotines in that fight, getting stuck on bottom. Like nothing about Dumas's game impresses me. His striking looks below average. I actually think he's got below average power for the division. I think he's a below average athlete. I think he's a below average grappler. Like Olasejuk, to your point, he's got his issues, especially in the grappling, and he can be a bit vulnerable to the body. But he's a Pitbull, and he's a really good striker, especially while he's fresh. And he's going to come forward and put up volume and throw big shots. I guess there is some scope for, grappling from Dumas, but I honestly don't see it, man. Like, Brundage kind of struggled with Olasejuk on the mat. I don't really see Dumas doing much better than that. I actually think there's some value on the -200 on Olasejuk. I'm hoping we get a reasonable KO line, or maybe it comes in a bit more, but I'm interested in McCall this week. I think this is one of those spots where everybody's going to say, oh, you can't bet Olasejuk -200 ever. And then he just comes out and absolutely clowns him and looks like -400 because he's actually having close fights with good fighters. And Dumas is barely scraping by decisions against LFA fighters.
Yeah. The Chitty win is aging pretty well too.
Very
yeah.
well.
And I mean, I rate Chitty on a higher tier than I do Dumas. So yeah, it's a huge step down in competition.
Oh yeah, I agree. Moving on. With this, we could be attending a funeral with this fight. I hope not, because he's one of my favorites of all time. But we got Darren Elkins taking on Julian Arosa. Current price, Arosa -375. The comeback on Elkins +310. What are your thoughts here, Pepe? Is Elkins live at all?
Can you circle back to me for a second?
Sure. What do you think, Legs?
I mean, I think there is some credence to Elkins because, I mean, you go back quite a bit. I mean, obviously Dawson's a much better grappler than this stage of Darren Elkins, but I mean, he was able to get some takedowns there in that spot, able to hold Arosa down. Like, I think there is scope for Elkins to maybe do that, but I mean, the guys that Elkins is having grappling success over, he has a clear grappling edge and a clear cardio edge, and I just don't see that here against Arosa. So to me, it's tough. I think I'd rather bet an under, to be honest, if anything.
Yeah. I have no interest in a bet here on anything, honestly. Like, I just, if you told me Elkins shows up with like good cardio, I could see him winning this fight just on, being a dog, being tough to sub and like hitting, many, many takedowns. But I've found Elkins' last few fights pretty off-putting, to be honest. In particular, like I know we all bet him against Pineda and I know he won, but I thought that fight was a pretty rough look for him, especially with a pretty much dead, gassed out Daniel Pineda and him kind of struggling to win in round 3 there. I think he's going to have a lot more trouble with Arosa because Arosa, unlike Pineda, or not unlike Pineda, but unlike Pineda, won't gas out and he'll counter grapple with him all fight. But on the feet, the difference is just huge. I don't really think Elkins profiles the kind of guy to, chin check Arosa early here. And I mean, Arosa obviously has tons of firepower himself. It feels, it almost feels like a square take saying it, especially since like the last time Arosa was priced like this was the Steven Peterson fight. And that was a very competitive scrap, which was kind of crazy, but I don't know. I can't get it. To me, it feels like this is going to be the Cub Swanson fight all over again for Elkins here, where he's just way too outgunned and gets hurt and finished pretty early in the fight. What do you think, Pepe?
Yeah, I was just thinking about how it's probably similar to the Cub Swanson fight.
Yeah.
Like, I think Arosa should be able to clip him at some point. Like Elkins has been hanging on by a thread in his last little run. He's damn near 41. He's had surgery on, both ACLs. Sure, he beat Daniel Pineda and TJ Brown and Tristan Connolly. But I mean, the Pierce fight was a horrid look.
Yeah.
I don't see why Arosa can't just replicate the JSP fight. And JSP's or Arosa's a much better striker than JSP. So
Yeah.
I think it's a good spot for Arosa. Do I want to lay the money line? Probably not, because usually the thing with a Arosa fight is you just bet the underdog.
Yeah.
And it's like you bet Arosa when he's a big dog and you don't bet him when he's a big favorite. So it might be one of those fights where you just sit back and enjoy the sport and not gamble on it.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on, we have a banger here, though, and I have an opinion on it. I'll be curious to hear what you guys have to say. We got Chase Hooper, -700, taking on Jim Miller, +525. And I'll be honest, I'm going to ride with Jim Miller one last time here. I'm going to go very small on it. Almost got a +700 home last weekend if the judges could have scored round one right in the Estela Nunes fight. But that didn't happen. But yeah, I mean, look, I get it. I get why Chase is a big favorite. Obviously, the trajectories of these two could not be more different. Much better cardio for Hooper. Probably the more durable fighter. I shouldn't say probably. He is the more durable fighter at this point in their careers. Obviously, Miller has historically been pretty easy to take down, which I'd imagine is playing into this line quite a bit. However, what I will say is, I mean, the guys Chase Hooper is taking down, with the exception of Guida, can't wrestle at all. Like, he's still not a good wrestler. To me, that hasn't changed. And, like, I know Miller doesn't have the best takedown defense, but it's not like he's just falling over, when guys take him down. Like, I don't think Hooper necessarily is going to be able to come out there and just run him over to the mat and sub him. And if he doesn't do that, I mean, round one could be hellacious for Hooper here if they're standing. Miller he's got faster hands. He hits way harder, just throws way more damaging strikes in general than Hooper does. So, like, I think the round one could be close unless Hooper can get the top position pretty quickly. If he can, it won't be close. But even there, though, I keep thinking about it. Like, the last time someone tried to really grapple Miller super proactively was Pichel. Now, Hooper's a better grappler than Pichel, no doubt. But there were a lot of scrambles there. Like, I don't think he won't be able to scramble with Hooper in this fight. So, yeah, I mean, I think Chase deserves to be a big favorite, but I also, given the round one dynamic, given the fact that Miller is a very experienced grappler himself, it's very hard for me to see how Hooper's getting up to like 88% implied. Liam said Selecki fucked him. He won the first round against Selecki, and then he lost the last two, that's kind of how I think this might go. But I'm going to look, maybe I won't take the money line. I'll take Jim KO1 or something. The other thing I've kind of thought about here, I'm maybe taking a GTD because I don't think Jim is that easy to sub. And I could easily picture this being, 15 minutes of, Miller kind of gassed and on bottom on the back end of the fight. But yeah, I mean, I like Miller here. What do you think, Pepe?
Yeah, I'm on the other side. I think Chase Hooper is going to get it done. We're talking about, you're saying like round one is going to be hell for Chase Hooper.
I think it could be.
I mean, we're talking about 41-year-old Jim Miller. And I think Chase Hooper has made a ton of improvements in the striking. And he just has a really fucking hard style to beat. He's got unlimited cardio. He's got relentless grappling, great ground and pound. And he is 24 years old?
Yeah, he's very young.
Yeah, he's 25 years old. He's filling into his frame a lot better. His wrestling has improved leaps and bounds. So yeah, and clearly they're building Hooper. This is a showcase fight for him. He took care of Slava, like absolutely raped Slava, and then after that performance, they give him 41-year-old Clay Guida on a pay-per-view card. And then he takes care of business nice and quick, gets another finish. They get another highlight that they can send out on social media for the next time he fights. They're clearly building him for popularity. The UFC is starved of top talent and stars. And I think Chase Hooper could potentially be a star at this weight class. Like I said, he's only 25. He's got a really good process to his game. Very likable kid. So yeah, I think Hooper is going to get it done. Like Liam said, Miller has a terrible gas tank, and he got out wrestled by Selecki and Vince Pichel when he was 37, 38. I don't know why I would assume that at 41 years old he's going to have better cardio. So yeah, I
have better cardio. I'm quite
sure. I don't really see him like knocking Chase Hooper out, honestly. Like best case scenario, I think personally, like, it's always like the fights where you think it's a slam dunk that it doesn't happen, but best case scenario for Miller is that he hurts Hooper and Hooper like pulls guard or something in round 1 and then takes over in 2 and 3. But yeah, I think Hooper is going to roll. What about you?
That's a fair point. What do you think, Legs?
I like the under here at -125. I think that captures a lot of Jim Miller round 1 upside, which to me, that's most of his win condition in general these days. I, again, talked about on and on the cardio, the chat. You guys have both mentioned it. But I think the pace and the pressure of Hooper's grappling, I think, is going to get it done here in the back half, which, I mean, not really a hot take. He's -800. But, yeah, I like the under.
Do they have round props yet?
No, they don't have props out yet, unfortunately. No, I mean, look, I don't disagree with you guys, but I do think if Chase doesn't take him down off the rip, the first round, like I do not, even with Chase improving his striking, I still think he's going to get touched up while they're fresh, unless he's taking him down. Green fucked him up, but Jim Miller won round 1 against Bobby Green, and even this version of Green, I think, would handle Chase on the feet with limited issue. So, I mean, that's generally my thinking, but I get it. And I mean, I agree that Hooper should be a big favorite. But moving on, we have a good one here. If you're a fan of grappling, we got Verna Janderoba. She's taking on Yan Jianan. Current price, Janderoba -155. Comeback on Jianan +135. What do you think, Pepe?
I think it's a good fight for Janderoba. Sure. I mean, is she a lock to win? No, of course not. But her upside in this specific matchup is fucking enormous.
Yeah.
And, we've seen Jan show that she's super susceptible to grappling. I think the one fight that people might look to justify, or the two fights that they're going to look to justify Jan being able to defend the grappling against Janderoba will be the Mackenzie Dern fight and the Ricci fight. But first of all, Ricci doesn't have nearly the wrestling or grappling that Janderoba has at all. And the Mackenzie Dern fight, so I personally think Mackenzie fought like a terrible fucking fight. Like, if you watch Mackenzie's fights, and the win is aging well. Kudos to her. She pulled it off as a big underdog. But you clearly see that Mackenzie has made a lot of improvements since that fight. She looked pretty off in that fight. She wasn't like truly committing to a lot of her shots. She was pulling guard a lot. And she even almost finished her in round 2 when she pulled guard. And then you look at the way that Janderoba handled Amanda Lemos, who is extremely physical. And you just have a lot of scope for Janderoba looking like a massive favorite in this spot. Like, if Janderoba gets her down at any point in round 1, she's gonna balloon out to -800, and then all she has to do is get one takedown in round 2 or 3 to win the fight. And her transitions are super nice, are very slick. Her grappling is really clean. She's. I think her wrestling is a bit better than Mackenzie's too. So I think it's a pretty good spot. We saw what Carla Esparza did to Yan Jianan when she got her down. We saw what Wei Li did to Yan Jianan when she got her down in round 1. She choked her out, and Yan Jianan was saved by the bell. Sub bettors got absolutely rinsed. That was bullshit. And we've seen Wei Li Zhang fight against Amanda Lemos. 5 rounds, grappling a bunch. She'd even come close to a submission, but she locked in a sub in round 1 against Yan. So yeah, I like Janderoba in this spot. -150 for her to potentially look like -800. and Jan has to fight the perfect fight. She can't even let her hands go because she has to worry about the grappling. And like on the feet, I get it. Janderoba is not good. And, maybe she's not as fast, but she's not like that bad on the feet. Her striking has improved over the years. So give me Janderoba here.
What do you think, Legs?
Yeah, I played Janderoba at -155 to win 1.5 units. On top of Pepe's point about the striking, she minimizes exchanges pretty well, too, on the feet. Again, she knows where her bread gets buttered, gets the takedowns pretty quickly, and, again, has huge upside in this fight. So, yeah, easy no-brainer play for me.
Yeah, I wish I had a contrarian take here just for the chat's sake, but I don't.
Yeah.
I also like the Verna side. I don't even know. Like, I do agree with Pepe that her wrestling is better than Dern's. But like, it's not like, it's kind of weird because I think people look too much at the explosion in her wrestling, which is why everybody always wants to fade her. And just like, don't realize she's very, very clever in how she approaches it. Like once she ties you up, she'll do like what would be traditionally minus EV things to get you to try to counter grapple her. And then she'll just take advantage and sweep or turn around to the back. I watch Jan and she just seems, if she can't just hold on to a whizzer in the clinch, she just seems to have very low IQ in the grappling. Like she just doesn't really know what she's doing. Now, could she just be too physical, defend Verna and piece her up? I guess. But I don't know, man. Like Pepe brought the Lemos fight. And I mean, Amanda Lemos just absolutely bodied Yasmin Lucindo in the clinch, who is a powerhouse. And you saw Amanda Lemos was not too physical for Verna to handle there. I do not think Jan is more physical than Lemos at all. I also don't think, I view the upside for Jan here as something like the Ribas fight where she can stay on her bike for 15 and just, prod her. But we haven't really seen that happen in her career yet, and nor do I think she has the energy capabilities to do that. Jan wants to stand at, and that's I think partially because she wants to sit in the pocket, sit down in her shots and throw power. And I think if she tries to do that here, she will get tied up in the clinch and probably get taken down. Could she knock Verna out? Yeah. Could she have a couple big moments and win a decision? Yeah. But I mean, to both of your points, I feel like I can't really put Jan finish higher than like 10% here. And if I can't do that, it's really hard for me to get to Verna lower than -200. So yeah, I'll be on Verna as well. I think she's the obvious side.
Yeah, I think she'll close like -180 to -200.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Moving on. Interesting fight here. Curious to hear your take on it, Pepe. We have Dan Ige. He's taking on Sean Woodson. Current price. Woodson taking a lot of steam here. He's at -170. Come back on Ige +145. What do you think?
This is a tricky one for me, honestly. I haven't been a huge Woodson guy, honestly. I made one of my worst bets of the year on Padilla against Woodson. And John, I know you bet Woodson against Padilla, but do you think Padilla looked off in that fight? Like,
yeah, the shot that hurt him looked like it was nothing.
That was a really, really weird fight. Like, I get Woodson was levels above him in the striking, and he tooled him up and finished him. Like, good on him. But Padilla looked really off in that fight. So yeah, this fight is interesting. It's going to be a minutes versus moments kind of fight. Woodson is going to have the much higher output. Ige relies on big moments to steal fights. Even in the Landwehr fight, he was getting kind of outpaced and outvolumed by Landwehr, and he had to rely on 2 knockdowns in order to win the rounds. And the thing about Woodson is he's kind of a weird commodity because his takedown defense looks pretty good. He's got good size for the division, but there's always that weird feeling with him because of his performance against Saldana, where he got dropped by a jab. And even the fight against Bazooka, he was getting pressured a bit and was like,
he got hit a bunch.
Yeah. He was getting pressured back. And like, the fight was on short notice. It was like a switch up of opponents. So I don't want to be too hard on the guy. Beating Charles Jourdain in Canada, is a solid win. Even though, Gugabe calls Jourdain like an ass puller and like thinks he's like complete trash. Like, I think everyone knows that like Jourdain is like a decent test for anyone. And especially in a striking fight, like a 15-minute striking fight, Jordan isn't a pushover at all. And Woodson showed great volume, great cardio, great output, but he's been hurt multiple times. Like we talked about him before, but Julian Arosa pulled a huge upset against Woodson in round 3 during COVID times after being down 2. So could Ige hurt him? Yes. Could Ige potentially get his grappling going and win with takedowns? Yes. The thing is, Ige's wrestling is pretty garbage. And I kind of feel like he's I don't know. I'm not going to say overperformed, but I haven't been impressed with him as of late. I know the Lerone Murphy fight was super close and he could potentially win like that. So I get why a dog shot on Ige is attractive. I'm not really sure if I could get there, but I was thinking the over 2.5 would be a solid look, but it's -250. So, it would have to, I don't see Woodson having any finishing upside whatsoever. So, if Woodson wins, it's going to be a decision. And if Ige wins, it's probably going to be a finish, but I don't know. What do you think?
Lags, what are your thoughts here?
I actually think this team's pretty justified. Like I understand people like betting him around, like when it was plus money or even around that pick him, just because I do like favor the volume and the length of Woodson. He's going to have a 7-inch reach advantage here over Ige, and Ige is just not a guy who wants to let his hands go a ton. Again, to your point, Pepe, it's a moments versus minutes kind of a fight. So I just don't think he's going to have those big moments.
Yeah, it's an interesting fight. The market, for what it's worth, has historically been very, very wrong on Sean Woodson fights. I think he was picking with Kyle Bochniak back in the day. He was like -700 against Julian Arosa, was -350 against Luis Saldana, was an underdog to Jourdain, was only a slight favorite against Bazooka, was like pick him with Padilla. It's just been the market's been all over the place on him. And I historically have liked Woodson a fair amount just because obviously giant frame, kind of tricky to deal with, fair amount of volume, all things you want to see. But, man, this is a huge jumping competition for him, like objectively. And I know Woodson looked really good against Padilla, but I mean, he was like pick him there. And like the fights leading up to that, he fought Caceres really, really close. I agree with Pepe. Jourdain was a good win, but it was a close fight. The Bazooka fight was, the back end of it was pretty dominant. But, even before that, Saldana, he would have lost to Saldana if not for the point deduction. Went to a split with Zalal. Like, he's very, very rarely separating big on the cards from anybody. And most of the guys he's fought, with the exception of Arosa and Padilla, I guess, but most of the guys he's fought aren't really all that dangerous. And now he's fighting a guy in Ige. And, like, yeah, I'm more or less with you guys. I think Ige is historically a bit overrated, and he has been a bit fortunate throughout his career. But, Ige's been in there with like everybody at this point. And the guy hits really, really hard. He's really, really durable. He has all the grappling upside in this fight. I'm with Pepe. I think his wrestling is just too shit to really trust that he's going to get him down.
Yeah.
But I do think if someone was to get 3 or 4 minutes of top time, it'll be Ige, not Woodson. And I just keep thinking, like, I mean, Murphy only outlanded him by like 5 strikes a distance over 15 minutes. He outlanded Josh Emmett at distance. The only guy to really dumpster him at distance so far in his career was Evloev. And like, I would not really put Woodson in the class of Evloev, nor does he have the wrestling threat that Evloev presented there. So I look at this fight and I'm like, yeah, I think Woodson's a bit better as a fighter, but And if the fight was just about who can win a 15-minute decision on volume, it would obviously be Woodson. But I feel like, all the physical intangibles favor Ige here. He's got the power edge. He's got the durability edge. He's got the cardio to be there. The grappling favors him. The strength of competition favors him. It's just like really, really hard with that dynamic to think Woodson can be like 60% or more here. Like I feel like the fight should be nearer to the pick'em range, maybe like -120 Woodson here. But I think the moment upside and the finishing upside alone levels the field a lot in terms of how you should be capping this fight. So that's my opinion anyway. I'm going to probably end up playing Ige, but it seems to be all one-way Woodson action. Does not seem to be much interest in Ige, so we'll see where this ends up.
John, you want to do a shot bet on it?
Yeah, that's fine.
Hey, speaking of which, I believe you owe me one a couple weeks ago.
Do I or what?
Yeah, it's okay.
what?
It's from the CJ Vergara fight.
Oh fuck, you're right. All right, yeah, we'll do that.
Moving
Moving on.
I
No.
won't spawn it on you this time.
Banger
This
fight
should say,
here.
yep.
Dominic Reyes, Nikita Krillov. The current price: Krillov minus 200. Come back on Reyes plus 170. Lags. What do you think here?
Honestly, this was an easy pass for me after tape because it's hard to do business with Krillov at a huge chalk like this. But I think his game's going to work here personally against Reyes. Like I think he's going to be able to get takedowns here. Like there's not a ton of faith on the Dom side for me. I mean, he could spark Krillov early, but if he doesn't, I think he's going to be able to get his grappling going.
Yeah, I really don't know. I am having a hard time making a read on it because my initial I want to fade Dominic Reyes at this point in his career.
Yeah,
I still do.
Same.
And I have concerns about his durability. But my initial thought in my head was, yeah, Krillov probably run through him. But now I'm looking at, how Reyes has defended takedowns historically. And he's actually got really good takedown defense and how his getup game has been, which has been really, really good. He's the sharper striker. I think that they both have power, but he's probably got a bit more power. I think he's the better athlete than Krillov. Could Kryllov's pace break him over 15? I think it could. And I think the grappling upside probably makes him a deserved favorite combined with Reyes being kind of dust. But like I go back to that John Jones fight and I'm like, man, John fucking Jones went 2 for 9 on takedowns and got less than 2 minutes of control against him. Like, I really don't think it's going to be a layup for Nikita Krillov to come out here and just grapple fuck him. And if it's not that, the line feels a bit wide. I'm just kind of hesitant to do business with Reyes at this point in his career. I mean, what do you think, Pepe? Do you think he's shot? Like,
dude, hear me out. It's Dom Reyes season.
I agree.
It's a tough click, dude. Dom Reyes is always a tough click, but I bet him against Jacoby and against Anthony Smith, and I think I have one more in me, man. Listen, Krillov, people love Krillov, and like I get it. He's got a really fun, exciting style, very fan favorite, but he's super hittable on the feet. And you're talking about he could pace Dom, and yeah, maybe he could get some takedowns, but like you said, Dom's takedown defense is decent. It's decent. We're not going to say it's elite or anything, but it's decent enough where I think he could potentially defend takedowns. If he gets taken down, I don't think he's like absolutely fucked. Could he be? Maybe. He might be fucked if he gets taken down in the middle of the cage or whatever. He probably gets ridden out for the rest of the round. But Kryllov's cardio isn't really that good. He's slowed down in a lot of his past fights, dude. And he's super hittable. And, I was watching the Ankalaev fight again. And, I get Ankalaev is great. He's the champion of the division for a reason. But that southpaw kick is going to be open for Dom. And he's got a really nice body kick. His boxing is way more crisp. It's not way more crisp, but it's more crisp than Kryllov's.
He gets the target faster.
Yeah. He's got a lot more accuracy behind his shots. The elephant in the room is going to be the durability of Reyes. So I get why it's a high risk play. If you don't like taking on a lot of risk, then don't. But if you like steering into variance, I think this is a pretty good spot for Reyes.
I completely agree, to be honest with you. I'm like so hesitant to pull the trigger on Reyes, but I do, and Reyes doesn't accept bottom. Like I've never seen him get taken down and just sit there. Like the guy tries to get up right away, and I really don't think Kryllov's going to be jumping his back and putting in like a body triangle on him. So yeah, it's interesting. Dixon asked, where has he been? He's pulled out of like 3 fights.
I think Azamat pulled out of the last one.
Okay, that might be. But yeah,
but to be fair, like he hasn't fought in 2 years. It's been over 2 years. So no one knows where he's been. Like he didn't post on social media for like a year and a half. He hasn't done any interviews yet. I'm sure he'll say something during media week about where he's been, but no, it's not public information.
Also, for what it's worth, like I think we're all thinking about Reyes and how much Reyes has been knocked out, but Krillov has fumbled a bunch of fights in his career. Like he has made, prior to this recent run, he made a kind of a career out of fumbling winnable fights, and I'm not sure that's changed. He had kind of a fortunate run, Ryan Spann. He lost to Paul Craig. He got Alex Gustafsson's corpse. Volkan fight, he literally was on like death's door early in that fight, and then Volkan kind of gassed out with him. Yeah, I'm with you, Pepe. It has to be Reyes at the price. So
the Paul Craig fight was the worst, man. That was the worst. The Paul Craig fight, that was.
Oh my god, yeah. I bet him against Craig. It was heinous.
Yeah, yep.
It was absolutely.
Yep.
That was so bad. But anyway, moving on. I'll let you guys start with this because I am going to run and grab a shot for this shot bet. We got Yair Rodriguez. He's taking out Patricio Pitbull. Current price, Yair minus 190 to come back on Pitbull plus 165. Take it away, Lex.
So I don't have a huge strong take from a money line perspective, but from a total, I think if the under 2.5 comes around stateside still at this price at plus 180, plus 190, I have a lot of interest in that. I think on the feet, both of these guys throw heat. I think there's going to be a lot of finishing upside. I think Patricio, if he wanted to, could get some grappling going, get the wrestling going, and stay safe on top of Yair. But personally, I'd rather an under than anything in this fight.
Yeah, you think he's going to grapple him?
I think he could. I don't think it's going to be like game plan A, obviously, which is why I'm not looking to bet Patricio, obviously. But I would rather take an under. Yeah.
So Lag said he liked the under. It's a really interesting fight, honestly. Like Yair is kind of a guy. He's kind of shown who he is as a fighter. He's been exposed by Volk and Ortega. Like I get Volk is, one of the best of all time. So that's excusable. And Ortega is really good too. So don't let me diminish that loss. But the way he gets, beaten when he gets taken down is just, he's shown he has fucking huge grappling hole. And Pitbull has gotten on top in some of his fights. Where I'm kind of hesitant playing Pitbull, so it's like, slam Pitbull. But the thing is, he doesn't like proactively wrestle in a lot of his fights. Like I was like rewatching the McKee fight, thinking it could be a good analog for this fight because McKee is long and rangy, and he won the fight. But he didn't try to wrestle one bit. He prefers to strike. He did take down Borix a couple times, but
knees.
Huh?
They were all off flying knees every day.
Yeah, exactly. They're all off flying knees. And I can't. Do you know? I can't even tell you the last time he's gone to wrestle in his fights.
I looked for it. I can't do business with Pitbull here, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. So could he get top time? Sure. But the thing is, when Volk was taking Yair down, those were impressive sweeps, and he was really. But the thing is, Yair always puts himself in stupid positions, and he throws flying knees all the time too. So he might take himself down, dude. So, and then you look at Pitbull, he's tiny for the weight class. He's getting up there in age. He's been chinned. I know the Ryzen fight was short notice, so I want to cut him a little slack, but that was a horrible look. And Yair can crack, so I think Yair might hurt him early, honestly.
Yeah, honestly, I was with both of you guys in that, my pre-tape thought was I'm going to probably smash Pitbull here. He should be able to out-grapple Yair easy. You just summed up the whole thing with tape. I don't see it either, and frankly, I am not sure that he's a good enough wrestler that even if that is game plan number one, he's going to be able to come out here and implement it successfully. My honest instinct after tape is that Yair is going to beat his ass. That's kind of, that's, there's enough downside with Yair. If, Pitbull is able to get takedowns, that I don't really want to do, business with the number. But man, Pitbull, I thought you mentioned the Ryzen fight. I thought he looked pretty bad against Jeremy Kennedy as well. honestly. Like, and I like Jeremy Kennedy, but let's be honest, Jeremy Kennedy is like not that good, especially on the feet. And he was having a lot of standing success. He's going to be at a huge speed disadvantage here. He's been getting hurt more and more. He's going to be at a huge volume disadvantage. The guy tends to be pretty low volume unless you're fighting him in the pocket, and Yair tends to fight outside the pocket. My instinct is, to both your points, unless Yair takes himself down here, I kind of think he's going to do what he wants to him. Like that is like my gut on how this is going to go. Again, minus 190 when there's potentially a plus 400 floor. I don't really want to be involved with that, but I would be interested in, like, if we got like a big enough Yair KO number, I'd be interested in it, because I do think he's going to hurt Pitbull in this fight personally.
Well, I mean, given that the under is plus 180, I would imagine that it's going to be decent. I would probably say maybe like 3-1.
I wouldn't hate that, honestly. And I think it captures a lot of the upside too if he does come out here and just beat him up.
Yeah, he's not going to submit Pitbull.
I mean, I think Pitbull is pretty firmly washed, to be honest. Like, I think it's pretty obvious to me in watching his tape. Even the Boric fight, outside of the flying knees, Boric was kind of whooping him on the feet for a lot of that fight.
Yeah, and Boric just got exposed.
Yeah, pretty badly. But yeah, I lean the Yair side, honestly, pretty semi-strongly. Moving on, though, this is a big one. We got Bryce Mitchell, Gene Silva. You guys know what I'm going to do here. I'll bet Bryce Mitchell at plus 250 or wherever it ends up going. Gene Silva's a stud, might be a future champion. We don't really know. He's obviously a much better striker, a lot more firepower than Bryce. I do think Bryce's KO to Emmett, though, is influencing the line a bit. I know he got finished by Topuria, but I don't think Bryce is like Chinny, man. Like, he was sitting in there and banging with Topuria for a lot of that fight and having a fair amount of success. So I think the idea that if Silva lands, one big shot, he's just going to go to sleep is pretty fundamentally flawed. And and like, this is the other thing. I from a market standpoint, I feel like Bryce Mitchell is now at like an all-time market low. Like, he's coming off being knocked out. He's a fucking asshole who is an anti-Semite. And so nobody likes him. And Gene Silva is like the new hype train. Like, I feel like those three dynamics right there basically guarantee that Silva's being probably overpriced a bit here. But from a stylistic standpoint, look, I don't know. It's very possible Silva's made big improvements in the time since his regional days. I didn't really love how his bottom game looked regionally, though. And obviously, he could have made huge improvements. He's still a pretty young fighter. But I also didn't love how easily Charles Jourdain was getting into his hips, which makes me think Bryce is going to get him down a few times in this fight. And now, if Silva has made improvements and he can get up, he's going to absolutely smoke him. But if he can't, if it turns out Bryce has a huge edge on top, then this line's going to be off by like $3. Bryce has been fighting in the top 10 for ages. Gene Silva, I mean, he beat Charles Jourdain and Drew Dober. He's great. Like, he's very, very good. I like him. I just think 75% implied against one of the best grapplers in the division seems crazy to me. So yeah, I'll be on Bryce for a unit or two. I think this is a dramatic overreaction. What do you think, Pepe?
This is not a fight I'm going to look to bet. What do you mean Dana White called it a setup fight? Do you know what he's talking about?
I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think Gene probably has the physicality to shuck off the takedowns. And, Jourdain did get him down, but he was able to spring back up to his feet with relative ease. And is Jourdain the kind of the same ilk of grappler or wrestler as Bryce Mitchell? No. But yeah, it's hard to unsee that knockout from Emmett. And I mean, overall, I think Bryce Mitchell was running kind of hot to like climb up the rankings as much as he did. Like, he beat freaking Andre Feely. He beat Dan Ige, but he was getting touched up bad on the feet against Ige. Like, Ige was having his way with him until he got that takedown at late round 2 and went right into Mount. So, I mean, I get why you want to play Mitchell, because if he is able to get his grappling going, he's going to look like a big favorite. I just personally don't see it happening. I'm seeing a lot of Brazilians win this weekend.
All right. What do you think, Lags?
Yeah, I bet Bryce Mitchell as well, John, for a unit of plus 250. I mean, listen, Gene Silva's great, fun to watch. I'm not going to deny that, but he's a physical specimen and he hits hard. That's really that's where I'm at with him. Like the volume, there's a little bit of lulls in his game. And I think the defensive grappling and the cardio there's still some pretty decent question marks surrounding those two things. So I think if Bryce is able to get his game going, those two characteristics in specific are going to be tested here. So it's hard not to click Bryce Mitchell plus 250 because, again, to your point, John, it's him and Aljo, the best grapplers in the division. Yeah. So it's like not many opportunities. I think
Evloev too.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, moving on. Co-main. Oh God, this is like one of those cards for me where it's like all of like that the House of Horrors, like all the guys that like I want to bet against here. We got Patty the Batty Pimblett. He's taking on Iron Mike Chandler. Pimblett minus 170. The comeback Chandler plus 145. I am like, I said it to Lags this morning. I was like, I think you just gotta keep it simple, stupid, and just bet Michael Chandler. But
yeah.
I am like, I've lost so much fucking money betting against Patty Pimblett so far. You know, Jared Gordon, Bobby Green. It's been ugly. Jordan Leavitt.
It was only Jared for me.
Yeah,
that was awful.
And this is like, the line is moving as if the fight's a trap, and as if it's a trap, and it does feel like a trap to me. And I think we all know the UFC specifically picked Mike Chandler because Mike Chandler is the top 10 guy who Patty has the best chance to beat. But what I keep thinking about, it's like, yeah, and I actually agree with that, but I'm not sure he belongs in near the top 10, Patty. You know, I haven't seen enough to really say that. Like Chandler's probably washed, but dude, he's so damn explosive. He should be able to, you know, pretty much dictate where the fight goes if it's on the ground or on the feet. Like Patty really shouldn't be dictating grappling at all. I don't know, man. I am like, I'm very, very torn, but I'm also not torn because like Mike Chandler's been fighting the literally best fighters in the world, and Patty Pimblett is beating a washed Bobby Green and a washed Tony Ferguson, and now he's minus 170 here. And Mike Chandler's probably washed too, but like we've seen Patty have sketchy moments with not very good fighters. He lost around to Jordan Leavitt. He had to rob Jared Gordon. Even he had sketchy moments.
Sketchy around to Tony.
Yeah. I'm just like, Chandler's got probably more grappling upside if he wants it. He won't take it. He's going to come out firing. But I just don't see how this can be right. So I don't feel great about it. It feels like, you know, the UFC wants Chandler to drop the ball here, but I'm going to probably hold my nose and pull the trigger on it. What do you think, Pepe?
I think that the leg kicks of Patty are going to give Chandler a lot of issues. You know, going back and watching the Green fight, Patty was able to get off a ton of super powerful leg kicks, and Chandler doesn't check leg kicks, and he's super heavy on his lead leg. So I think Patty's going to fuck him up with the leg kicks early. So couple that with the fact that the fight is 5 rounds. Did you know that?
Oh, shit. You can't. I forgot. Yeah,
that's fucking crazy. Like, yo, this is such a meme fight, honestly. Dude, what did they line the total at? 1.5?
So originally, Pepe, because John and I were talking about it. So originally it was a 2.5, like minus 210 to the over. And now it's an under 1.5 market wide.
And now everyone is steaming the under 1.5.
Yeah.
I mean,
This is a
really weird fight. So Chandler is about to be 39. You know, he's coming off. He just came off 4 months ago. That war with fucking Oliveira, where he looked pretty washed. But then again, you're like, okay, but it's Charles Oliveira, who's like literally top 3 of all time. So it's excusable. But you know, the leg kick thing I can't unsee. And
that's a really good point that I
like. What's Chandler's path to victory? Like, he can bonk him, he can take him down potentially. Yeah. Is he gonna wrestle?
So that's my thing. And Liam said it here that Chandler's an entertainer now, and it's kind of my biggest concern because I think Mike Chandler, if he wanted to win a UFC title, would just come out here and do what he did to Brent Primus and Goiti Yamachi and just wrestle him for 5 rounds with relative ease. But he doesn't wrestle anyone anymore. He comes out swinging and looks for someone to kill somebody.
Yeah, because it's like when you think about it, it's like, okay, Chandler had a war with Justin Gaethje that was like pretty fucking close. So you would think that he would be the side against Paddy Pimblett. But, you know, Paddy, the thing is, Paddy is in his physical prime. Yeah. He's going to be a lot bigger than Chandler.
He looks like he's on steroids.
Yeah. Oh, he's definitely clearly on steroids. Yeah. He's definitely an investment from the UFC, you know. So I think, you know, clearly they're trying to push Pimblett, Jane Silva. There's a bunch of people on this card that Chase
and it's what I'm trying to be careful of, because I've taken the bait on so many of these fights in the past, you know, and it's like my biggest concern and hesitancy with Chandler here, because they know what they're doing. It doesn't mean it'll work, but they do know exactly, like they're going to give Paddy a guy who's not going to fight optimally and going to come out swinging for the fences.
So yeah. my thing is, it's like, and something that you should ask yourself, will you be upset if Chandler ends up beating Paddy Pimblett and you don't bet it, rather than if you bet Chandler and he gets worked by Paddy? Like, which
I
would
think I feel worse about betting Chandler and him getting worked, honestly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You would feel worse if you took the bait and bet Chandler, because it's not like, okay, I get like it's dog money, but it's only plus 145. And, you know, I get he's like he's a world-class athlete, but he's approaching 39 years old. He's coming off a war where he looked like shit. And now he's fighting a guy 9 years younger in his physical prime, who has the leg kick advantage, who's a decent grappler. Like, the Gordon fight was a bad look, but
Gordon's also a smarter fighter than Chandler.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a weird fight to cap, to be honest. I'm surprised that the total is under 1.5. I wonder if people are assuming Paddy's gonna knock him out in round 1.
Probably, maybe.
What do you think, Glags?
So I'm kind of with you, John. Like, I'm more so like, I want to bet Chandler, but I know that the trap I'm probably walking into, just because of the aforementioned things we talked about. Chandler coming in, not fighting optimally, because obviously he could easily wrestle Paddy here, in my opinion. I think on the feet, obviously he could knock Paddy out. But he's super open in his style too. And I think, like we had mentioned, I think it's a great fight for Paddy in that sense of, what kind of guy are you trying to push him inside the top 10? And I think Chandler's that guy. He's super open in the striking, takes a ton of damage. And obviously he's been fighting, you know, the cream of the crop lately, but, you know, obviously that damage does add up. Like you mentioned, 39 years old now.
And for what it's worth, the cream of the crop is like Dustin and Gaethje are probably both declining pretty severely, honestly.
Yeah. And the thing is, he had moments in both of those fights and in the Oliveira fights as well. So it's like, and I think Paddy will get rinsed by all 3 of those guys. So it's a tough spot. I think it's an easy pass for me, though. But
yeah, the UFC also wants Paddy Topuria. That is what they're angling for here. Is for Topuria to beat Islam, Paddy get this win, and then just put him on the shelf to fight Topuria. That is what they want. I'm telling you. If Paddy wins,
it's an awful timeline we're going to live in. It's an awful timeline we're going to live in if that happens.
It will be something. But anyway, we'll move on. We got the main event. Another guy who I've just been wrong on every step of the way, and why I'm not sure if I'll bet this fight. We got Alexander Volkanovski. He's taking on Diego Lopez. Volkanovski currently a minus 145 favorite. The comeback on Lopes plus 125. I don't know. I'll be curious for your guys' thoughts here. Personally, I've lost so much money trying to fade Lopes, and I feel like I should be betting Alexander Volkanovski. Like, I bet Pat Sabatini minus 130 against Lopez. I feel like Volkanovski minus 145 should be a gift. I feel Volkanovski's got every tool he needs to win this fight. But I also feel like, I mean, look, Volk's 36 years old. The guy has had 3 fights in a row where he's taken big damage. Islam hurt him twice in the first fight. He knocked him out in the second fight. He got knocked out cold by Topuria. I'm very comfortable saying that Volkanovski is very likely declining at this juncture of his career. And he's taken out a guy in Lopez who is just an absolute, killer. Guy's got big power, dangerous submission grappler. And I can't get out of my head this like Lopez finishing him. Like that's what I keep picturing it. But having said that, I do think, Volkanovski's going to have this guy swinging at air a lot. He's going to be landing the counters pretty much at will. He should land the calf kicks at will. He should land his jab pretty much at will. And I think once it clears the early stages, Volkanovski probably pumps him down the stretch in this fight. Like, even 36-year-old Volkanovski, he looked pretty good against Topuria before he got knocked out. But I don't know. It does feel like, we know where the trajectories are. I feel like Volkanovski is very clearly like nearing the end of his career here. But it's weird because I keep going back and forth because I'm like, there's like 6 guys in this division I'd favor against Diego Lopez right now. There's not 6 guys I'd favor against Alexander Volkanovski. It's basically Ilia Topuria and that's it. And so I'm like, man, I can picture it so easily seeing Volk dying, but also it might be like a generational opportunity to get to bet arguably the best featherweight ever at -140 against Diego Lopez. But also, it feels like a trap. So, like, I don't know. Volkanovski, the better fighter. I think we all know that. The much better fighter. But the question is, how far has he slipped and how likely is Lopez to kill him? What do you think, Pepe?
Oh, man. This fight is fucking crazy, dude.
It's your boy, Pepe.
Yo, it's my boy, dude. I've never won a dime on a Diego Lopez fight.
Damn.
I've lost a car fading him. But how can you not root for the guy? He's definitely a fan favorite, and it's crazy because like I've watched a couple of his fights like out at like one time I was at like a bar restaurant and another time I was at the casino, and dude, people love this guy. Like I didn't realize like how big of a star Diego Lopez is, but people really love this dude. They like rooting for him. Yo, how crazy would it be if Yair knocked out Pitbull in round 1 and then Diego finished Volk, and then they did a title fight between Diego and Yair in Guadalajara for UFC 320 or whatever. That would
be sick. While Evloev just continues to wait for a title shot.
While they match up Evloev with Aaron Pico.
Yeah.
I could see that happening. This is a tough fight though. I mean, like, look, Volkanovski's losses are Makhachev twice and Topuria. Like the two best fighters. So it's like, do we really want to be hard on Volkanovski? Like he was looking pretty good up until he got caught against Topuria. But, it was kind of concerning the way he went out. It wasn't like I don't know. You can kind of just tell like when getting chinned, the first time against Makhachev, whatever, he took it on short notice, but that second knockout, man, and the way he reacted to it, and like there was signs that Volkanovski's durability was waning for a while. Like Ortega dropped him. Like he had been dropped a couple times. So it was only a matter of time before he gets finished again. But then like you watch Diego Lopez and like, yeah, his striking is good, but it's like it's only good early on in the fight, like the first 7.5 minutes. So I think if Volkanovski is able to stay safe for like the first 8 minutes, he should start pumping him down the stretch. And man, yeah, I kind of feel like Volkanovski's like the sharp side to bet, to be honest. But to your point, like it also does kind of feel like a trap. It's not an easy click.
No. And I feel like these spots, and this is maybe my own recency bias, but I feel like these kind of turning of like, passing of the torch spots the last 2 years it's just been one-way traffic, like that's how it feels. What do you think, Logs?
I'm more with Pepe, to be honest with you. While it might be a trap, like I'm fine with betting Volkanovski here, to be honest with you. Like I'm totally in agreement with it. He is regressing a bit. Like, I'm not going to diminish that fact. But again, to his point, it's number 1 and number 2 pound for pound fighters right now. So I'm not ready to say that Volk has regressed to a crazy degree that, Lopez is going to go out here and style on him. I think Lopez has a tiny window to find that kill shot. And if he doesn't, to Pepe's point, I think Volk pumps him down the stretch. So yeah, I think minus 145, minus 150 on Volk is good, but I'm patient on the line though, because it seems like most people are just looking to bet Diego now.
No, why is the over 2.5 is minus 220?
That seems crazy to me.
Yeah.
It makes no sense in the context of the line.
That's like, I feel like that's like a broken line.
Yeah, dude, it's been going up all day. Juice Better asked about the grappling dynamic. I actually think that's one of the, I don't know if I would want Volk hanging out in his guard early, but I
think
actually
you can stay safe though.
Dude, if Lopez starts to get tired and
Yeah.
Volk starts taking him down, he'll finish him on the mat, I think, eventually.
Yeah.
Like Lopes is dangerous, really dangerous for about, make your point, Pepe, 6 or 7 minutes, but we've seen him melt on the mat before in his career.
Yeah, his cardio looked decent against Evloev, but
It did. But it didn't look great against Dan Ige. It looked pretty bad against Dan Ige. But then it looked pretty good against Ortega. So
yeah, the Ige one you kind of have to put an asterisk with though, because they fought at 165.
Yeah, that's true. That's a fair point.
And like, I see people in the chat talk about the Ortega fight for Lopez, but dude, Ortega looked hella washed.
And even at his peak,
Yeah.
Ortega was kind of a punching bag.
Yeah, like I had heard some things about Ortega leading into the Lopez fight. Like he wasn't really training, he wasn't keeping his weight down or anything like that. He had been dealing with like injuries and sickness. Yeah, Ortega was super washed going into that Lopez fight.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, at the end of and that's the thing, right? At the end of the day, we're playing a numbers game, and it's really hard for me to say that anybody finishes Volkanovski 40% of the time or more, much less Diego Lopez.
Yep.
Which in and of itself should be probably a sign to play Volkanovski.
Yeah.
It's really more vibes than anything else. Like, to me, like the breakdown of the fight and what we see on tape seems very cut and dry. Volkanovski should be a decent sized favorite. But the vibes seem off. I don't even know why they seem off. I just have.
Come on, John, dad vibes.
Yeah.
Diego Lopez has aura.
Yeah, he does have aura, and he's taken a lot of my money.
Well, there's something to be said about the confidence of a surging fighter who's on a big win streak. So, I'm sure he's like we talked about in the Pimblett versus Chandler fight, like Diego is in his physical prime and Volkanovski is not. So, we're not going to see a fight. We're not going to see Volk look better than, he did against Yair, but we could potentially see Diego look even better than he has in his previous fights. So, yeah,
there's some downside on the Volk. There's actually a lot of downside on the Volk side,
Yeah, and he's smaller.
Yeah. Much smaller.
Yeah, Lopez has the age advantage, the size advantage, the power early advantage, the potential submission upside advantage. He's the underdog. Yeah. But Volkanovski has fought, the way higher level of competition. Say what you want about Lopez, he can crack, but he's been absolutely sun running to get into this spot. Like, he beat Tucker, Sabatini, Sadiq Youssef, Ige, and then a washed Ortega to get a title fight. I mean, that's a pretty soft fucking. That's a soft climb.
He didn't have to go through any of he lost to Evloev.
He lost to Evloev.
Yeah, didn't have to fight Murphy. Didn't have to
fight Bryce Mitchell. Didn't have to fight Taporia. What's the Allen guy?
Arnold Allen.
That's my thing. It's like he legitimately might be the 8th or 9th best fighter in this division. Like, that's
I think Arnold Allen would be a terrible matchup for Diego Lopez.
He'd fuck him up, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Arnold Allen. I think Arnold Allen would work Diego.
Yeah, so like that's kind of what's tripping me up, because all the shit you just mentioned, Pepe, regarding trajectory is on point. But like, also the reality is this would be the worst loss of Alexander Volkanovski's UFC career, if he lost this fight by a fairly large margin. So I don't know, man. I'm still thinking about it. If it gets to like pick 'em, I'll bet Volkanovski because at that point, kind of just have to. But I don't know. I don't want to take too many. I don't want to fall into some of the same traps I've fallen into in the past. And this kind of feels like it. Like I look at this card. I feel like, I mean, I really like Mitchell. I shouldn't say really like. I like Cowan. I like Reyes. Like those seem like really good spots. And this one seems like we're playing a lot of guessing about where Alexander Volkanovski is at this point in his career.
Yeah. I like Verna quite
a bit. Verna.
Yeah.
Verna to me feels like the best spot on the card. It's like you have a woman with giant grappling upside who's not likely to get finished, and she's minus 150. Or I could bet Alexander Volkanovski at the same price against like the most dangerous like first 10 minutes guy in the division, you know?
Yeah, and Ola Jacek feels like a decent spot too.
I agree. I think Juice is
now
pretty well on this card, honestly.
So, John, the counter, though, at least for the main event, though, I mean, with the over where it's at, though, I mean, you can easily hedge with a Lopez KO1 type of spot.
That's true. Or play the under.
I would imagine. Yeah.
I also think Volk is probably a better live bet.
He could be. The issue, so like I agree with that, but it's also like if Volk shows up still being Volk, he's probably going to win every minute until and unless he gets hurt. You know, he's going to probably dominate even early in the fight. But I do agree with you. But yeah, guys, I mean, that's the show. A lot of uncertainty here. It's going to be a fun card. We're going to shout Pepe out for coming on tonight. You can find him on Twitter at Pepe_Sylvia716. Pepe, tell them where they can find you. A lot of shuffling coming.
Yeah, no, just follow me on Twitter. I'm not selling anything right now. Just trying to make bank and get some locks this weekend.
Will you be doing more content after this weekend, or?
Yeah, we're doing our last show for Fight Numbers this weekend, so come out and show some support Thursday at 9. And then I'm still deciding what I'm gonna do post this week. I'll probably take like a week or two of a break and then put some sort of content out going forward. Just I haven't decided in what capacity.
Dude, you, Ozzy, and Chad have to keep a show even if John is not busy enough. That is excellent. It is excellent content.
Yeah, I like the live shows where we can interact with the chat. You know.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Talk some shit to each other.
It's good entertainment.
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, that'll do it. Drop a like, subscribe. We have a break next week, but we'll be back in 2 weeks. Take it easy and good luck this weekend. Peace.